There was a time when this city felt like it belonged to everyone. You remember it, don't you? The clatter of coins hitting metal trays, the smell of cheap shrimp cocktails, and the electric feeling that you could come here with a few $100s and live like a king for the weekend. But walk the strip today, and that energy has been replaced by something colder. The lights are brighter than ever, yet the halls are hauntingly quiet. We are witnessing a statistical anomaly that shouldn't be possible. Nearly $20 billion in renovations, yet the crowds are thinning out. The soul of the city hasn't just dimmed, it's being surgically removed. Today, we dig into the numbers to find out why. Walking through the Aria or the Fontainebleau right now doesn't feel like a vacation. It feels like a transaction. I spoke with locals and longtime visitors, and the sentiment is unanimous and unsettling. It's a feeling of being processed rather than entertained. One veteran slot technician told me it feels less like a party and more like a wealth extraction facility. The joy of the gamble has been replaced by the certainty of the bill. It's not just that things are expensive, it's the palpable sense that the city no longer wants you here unless you are willing to lose everything. Stick with me, because what is happening in Las Vegas is not just bad luck. It is a calculated economic shift. Over the next 20 minutes, we are going to analyze 7 distinct failures that are driving this collapse. We will look at the premiumization trap that backfired, the silent exodus of their most loyal international neighbors, and the specific greedflation tactics, like that infamous $26 water bottle that turned loyal fans into bitter critics. Later, we'll look at a specific infrastructure report that suggests the future of the city is actually broken. The house always wins. But what happens when the players refuse to sit at the table? Part 1. The $20 billion bonfire. To understand the magnitude of this crisis, we have to look at the sheer amount of capital that has been poured into the desert sand recently. Since the pandemic, corporations have unleashed a staggering $20 billion into super projects designed to reinvent the city. They promised a new golden age, a renaissance of luxury that would justify higher prices. But if you look past the ribbons and the press releases, the data tells a much darker story. The return on this massive investment isn't just disappointing, it is bordering on catastrophic. Let's look at the occupancy rates, the heartbeat of any hospitality city. Historically, a healthy Vegas operates at 85 to 90% capacity. It thrives on being full. But recently, those numbers have struggled to climb out of the mid-60s, hovering dangerously around 66 to 68% during key periods. That is a massive deviation. We are talking about thousands of empty rooms every single night. The glossy new towers are standing there like monuments to hubris, beautiful, but vacant. Corporate spokespeople will tell you this is part of a normalization phase, or cite seasonal adjustments. They argue that revenue per room is up, so occupancy matters less, but that is a dangerous deflection. When you build capacity for millions and only thousands show up, the overhead eats you alive. The ugly truth here is that they bet the farm on a luxury boom that never materialized. They built palaces for a clientele that simply isn't large enough to sustain a city of this size, leaving the vast majority of their inventory gathering dust, while they scramble to cover the interest on that $20 billion debt. Part 2. The premiumization trap. This leads us directly into the strategic error that caused those empty rooms, a concept the boardrooms call premiumization. In plain English, this is the deliberate decision to stop catering to the budget traveler and the middle-class family. For decades, the logic of Las Vegas was volume. You get the guy with the $50 bankroll, you get the grandmother with her pension check, and you treat them like royalty because there are millions of them. But somewhere along the line, the executives decided they didn't want those customers anymore. They wanted whales. The ultra-wealthy, price-insensitive VIPs. You can see this strategy in the physical erasure of affordable options. The cheap buffets? Gone. The $5 blackjack tables? Extinct. They have been replaced by high-limit lounges and exclusive clubs that sit empty half the time. The logic was that one wealthy client is worth 100 regular tourists. On a spreadsheet, that might look efficient, but in the real world, it destroys the ecosystem. The middle class was the energy of this city. They were the ones filling the sidewalks, buying the souvenirs, and keeping the lights on during the weekdays. Defenders of this strategy argue that it raises the prestige of the brand and reduces wear and tear on the facilities. They say they are elevating the experience. But to the average American family, this doesn't feel like elevation. It feels like eviction. The ugly truth is that by chasing the top 1%, Vegas has effectively fired its most loyal employees, the customers. They have created a sterile playground for the rich that feels lonely and hollow, forgetting that the rich usually want to be where the party is. And the party is gone because the regular people can't afford the cover charge anymore. Part 3. The Canadian Exodus. The consequences of this pricing strategy have rippled across borders, hitting one group harder than any other: our neighbors to the north. For generations, Canadians have been the bedrock of Las Vegas international tourism, historically accounting for nearly 20% of all foreign visitors. They were reliable, they stayed longer, and they loved the city. But recent reports indicate a massive, silent withdrawal of this critical demographic. We are seeing what can only be described as a Canadian exodus. The reasons are purely mathematical. With the Canadian dollar struggling against the US greenback, the new inflated prices of Las Vegas have become mathematically impossible for the average Canadian household. When you combine a 30% exchange rate disadvantage with tripled hotel fees and skyrocketed food costs, a simple weekend getaway turns into a financial burden. We are looking at an estimated loss of over $3.6 billion in revenue as this reliable stream of visitors dries up. Industry analysts try to downplay this by blaming global travel trends or slow post-pandemic flight recoveries. They insist the market will bounce back once the currency stabilizes, but that ignores the sentiment on the ground. Canadians aren't just staying home. They are going to Mexico, the Dominican Republic, or cruise ships, where their dollar goes further and they don't feel exploited. The ugly truth is that Vegas didn't just lose these customers, it priced them out aggressively. The city burned a bridge with its closest ally, and the silence you hear in the casinos is the sound of that relationship ending. Part 4. Infrastructure, hype versus reality. While the international guests are disappearing, the city has tried to lure them back with technological marvels. But this brings us to the fourth failure: the gap between the infrastructure hype and the operational reality. We were promised a city of the future. What we got was expensive novelties that struggle to make a profit. Take Elon Musk's Vegas Loop. It was sold as a revolution in urban transit, a high-speed underground artery. In reality, it is currently a narrow tunnel filled with Teslas driven by humans, moving a fraction of the promised capacity, barely 3,000 people an hour during peak times. It functions less like a transit system and more like an amusement park ride with a wait time. Then there is the Sphere. Visually, it is undeniable, a technological masterpiece, but economically, it represents a $2.3 billion headache. The operating costs are so astronomical that they have already caused financial tremors for the parent company, leading to stock volatility and C-suite resignations shortly after opening. It is a symbol of the new Vegas, spectacular to look at, but financially precarious to maintain. The corporations argue these are long-term plays, that innovation takes time to mature. But for the visitor, these projects don't solve the basic problems of getting around or finding value. They add to the spectacle, but they also add to the cost. The ugly truth is that you, the consumer, are the one subsidizing these experiments. Every time you pay an inflated resort fee, you are effectively paying off the interest on a giant glowing orb, or a tunnel that doesn't quite work as advertised. Part 5. Greedflation and the $26 water. This brings us to the most visceral point of contention, the one that makes headlines and boils blood. Greedflation. There is a difference between necessary price hikes due to inflation and what is happening on the Strip. When a bottle of Fiji water at a hotel convenience store costs $26, or parking, which used to be free, hits $40 a night, we have left the realm of economics and entered the realm of exploitation. This isn't about covering costs. It is about aggressive monetization of basic human needs. Social media is flooded with receipts and stories of shock. It has become a genre of its own, the Vegas ripoff. Visitors feel held hostage. Once you are inside the resort, the trap snaps shut. The pricing models are designed to extract every possible cent before you even hit the casino floor. It creates an atmosphere of constant defensiveness. Instead of relaxing, you are constantly guarding your wallet against the next ambush charge. The hotels will say they are just matching market demand, or that these prices are for convenience. But the market is reacting. The sentiment has shifted from Vegas is expensive to Vegas is a scam. That is a dangerous tipping point. The ugly truth is that by nickel and diming loyal customers for water, parking, and resort fees, these corporations have shattered the psychological contract. They have traded long-term loyalty for short-term quarterly profits, and the customers are voting with their feet. Part 6. The service sector crisis. But the pain isn't just felt by the tourists. It is tearing apart the workforce that makes this city run. This is our 6th point, the service sector crisis. I've read through forums and spoken to dealers who have worked the tables for 20 years. Their story is consistent and heartbreaking. As the whales replaced the regular crowds, the steady stream of tips, the lifeblood of service workers, has dried up. A high roller might tip big once, but 1,000 middle-class players tip consistently. Without that volume, wages effectively crash. The workforce has not fully recovered to 2019 levels, and those who remain are squeezed between stagnant wages and the same skyrocketing cost of living that is driving tourists away. We are seeing a silent resignation, where experienced staff are leaving the industry entirely, replaced by newer, less experienced workers, or worse, by automated kiosks. The human connection, the friendly dealer who knew your name, is fading. Management calls this labor optimization, or efficiency. But to the workers, it feels like abandonment. The ugly truth is that you cannot have a premium hospitality experience with a demoralized workforce. When the person checking you in or dealing your cards is struggling to pay rent and feels undervalued, the magic of the city evaporates. The glitz on the outside is hiding a deep rot of dissatisfaction on the inside. Part 7. Losing the soul. All of these factors, the empty rooms, the astronomical prices, the excluded Canadians, and the disillusioned workforce, converge on our final, most devastating point. Las Vegas is methodically destroying its own soul. This city used to be the great equalizer. It was the only place in America where a schoolteacher from Ohio or a plumber from Texas could fly in with a few $100s and feel like Frank Sinatra for 3 days. It was a democratization of luxury, a place that sold the beautiful lie that anyone could be a winner. It was messy, it was loud, and it was wonderfully unique. But today, that chaotic charm has been sanitized into oblivion. The themed casinos that offered a sense of escapism, the pirates, the clowns, the volcanoes, are being replaced or renovated into generic walls of glass and steel. It is becoming a gated community for the global elite, a sterilized shopping mall with slot machines that feels indistinguishable from a high-end airport terminal in Dubai or Singapore. By chasing the highest bidder, the corporations have discarded the culture that made the desert bloom. They have forgotten that people didn't come here just for luxury. They came for the freedom of Vegas. The ugly truth is that by trying to be everything for the 1%, Vegas is becoming nothing to everyone else. They are trading their unique, gritty identity for a generic version of corporate perfection that nobody asked for. If Vegas becomes just another expensive place to buy a handbag and eat a steak, it loses its reason to exist. So, is this the end of Las Vegas? Is the neon going to flicker out forever? Not necessarily. If history teaches us anything about economics, it is that markets are self-correcting mechanisms. The current situation, empty rooms and angry customers, is a signal that the market is rejecting this new model. The pendulum has swung too far toward greed, and gravity is starting to pull it back. We are already seeing the cracks. Some resorts are quietly bringing back free parking. Room rates in off-peak times are softening. The corporations are stubborn, but they are not suicidal. They answer to shareholders, and shareholders hate empty buildings. We are likely entering a painful period of correction, where these companies will be forced to relearn a hard lesson. You cannot exist without the people. The power, ultimately, is not in the boardroom. It is in your wallet. If the prices are too high, the market will force them down. It is just a matter of time. Now I want to turn this over to you. I want to hear from the people who built this city with their visits, the regulars, the families, the poker players. Is Las Vegas dead to you? Have you canceled a trip recently because of the prices? Or do you think this is just a phase that will pass? Tell me your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If you want to understand more about how the economy is really working behind the scenes, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. The truth is often uncomfortable, but we are here to find it together. Thanks for watching.